In a world that's just constantly changing, new tech, markets shifting under our feet, global surprises around every corner, what kind of leadership actually works anymore? Is there some secret, perfect style, or is the answer something a lot more dynamic? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why being a rigid leader is such a problem. Then, we'll get into the adaptive answer. We're going to look at the mindset you need, lay out a super practical playbook, and then we'll wrap up with a little challenge for you.
All right, first up, let's talk about the big conflict here. We're all living in this fast-forward world, right? But so much of our leadership feels like it's stuck on pause. Let's really explore why that mismatch is not just bad, it's dangerous.
It's a huge question, isn't it? I mean, in a world that's all about competition and constant change, why do the very people who are supposed to be guiding us through it so often get left in the dust?
The research we're diving into today is crystal clear on this. The real problem, the fundamental issue, is a failure to adapt. Leaders get comfortable, they stick to one style, one playbook, even when the rules of the game have totally changed. And this isn't some small flaw, it's a critical failure in today's world.
And the fallout from this? Oh, it is severe. When a leader is inflexible, it starts this massive ripple effect. Your best employees, they feel disempowered, like they're just cogs in a machine. Operations start to break down. People check out mentally. They become disengaged. And the bottom line, the whole organization starts to underperform. So you might be wondering, how do we know all this? Well, the insights we're talking about today come from a really deep dive PhD study. The researchers didn't just sit in a lab. They went out and talked to 25 real leaders in a super fast-paced industry to figure out what it really takes to adapt on the fly. Okay, so we've laid out the problem pretty clearly. Now it's time to talk about the solution. And this isn't just some new management fad, It's a completely different way of thinking about what it means to lead. And here it is, the hero of our story, adaptive leadership. The big idea here is so simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's not about having all the answers yourself. Nope. It's about mobilizing your people, empowering them to face down those really tough, messy challenges, and giving them what they need to not just survive change, but actually thrive in it. Now, this is absolutely crucial, so listen up. You are not born an adaptive leader. This isn't some personality trait you either have or you don't. It's a practice. It's a skill you can learn. It's a set of behaviors you choose to use depending on what's happening right in front of you. I mean, just look at the difference here. It's like night and day. The rigid leader is all about top-down control, avoiding risk at all costs, and using the same old approach for every single problem. The adaptive leader, they do the exact opposite. They empower people, they actually embrace change, and they switch up their style to fit the situation. So if being adaptive is a skill, a practice, where does it even start? Well, the research points to one very clear answer. It starts in your head. Before you can act differently, you have to think differently. Okay, this was one of the most fascinating things that came out of the study. When the researchers asked why these leaders were so adaptable, this powerful theme kept popping up. It wasn't just about being flexible for the sake of it. No, it was fueled by this intense, almost primal drive to compete and to win. And just how intense are we talking? This quote from one of the leaders pretty much says it all. An insane thirst for winning and a win-or-death mentality. Wow. This isn't just, liking to succeed. This is a core part of who they are, and it forces them to adapt, because they know that standing still means losing. But here's the thing. That crazy competitive drive, it's not just about being aggressive. It's the engine for all the other key adaptive skills. It fuels the resilience you need to get knocked down and get right back up. It powers a growth mindset because you have to keep learning to win. And it gives you that raw motivation to just smash through any obstacle that gets in your way. Okay, so we get the mindset. It's about that drive to win. But what does an adaptive leader actually do day to day? Let's get really practical and break down the playbook that came out of all this research. So the study basically boiled down everything these 25 leaders did into 6 core practices. And these aren't just theories, right? This is what they actually do. They're all about tackling barriers head-on, communicating honestly, empowering their teams, using that competitive drive, leading from the front, and this one's important, creating real accountability. Let's just zoom in on leading by example for a second. This quote from one of the leaders, it just paints such a perfect picture, doesn't it? It's not about sitting up in some office barking orders. It's about being out in front, grabbing the rope, and pulling right there with your team. Your actions speak louder than any memo ever could. And what about accountability? Now, that word can sound a little scary, but the way adaptive leaders do it is pretty counterintuitive. It's not about micromanaging or pointing fingers when things go wrong. It's about building a clear structure, clear goals, clear systems, and good training so that everybody on the team knows the mission and has the tools to adapt. It's actually structure that creates freedom and flexibility. So what's so cool is how this all connects. The study asked these big questions at the beginning, and boom, the themes it discovered gave direct answers. Why do they adapt? Because they're driven to win, and they know empowering their team is the only way to do it. And how do they do it? By leading from the front and building systems that actually support change. Okay, so we've walked through the problem, the solution, the mindset, and even the playbook. Now comes the most important part of all. How do you make this real for yourself? If you take away just one thing today, please let it be this. Leadership is not a title, it is not a position on an org chart. This research proves that adaptive leadership is a practice. It's a set of actions that anyone at any level of an organization can use to bring people together and solve tough problems. So we're going to leave you with this final thought. Forget about some 5-year plan. Based on everything we've just talked about, what is one small thing you can do today to be a little more adaptive? Maybe it's listening more. Maybe it's empowering someone on your team. Maybe it's just grabbing the rope and pulling with them. Because in a world that never, ever stops changing, our leadership can't afford to stand still.